Welcome to the MMHP and the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history, recorded live from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located inside the Bay County Historical Museum
from the city by the bay,
featuring Dr. J, Fred Reif, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker. Brought to you by the 989 Podcast Network and the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located at the Bay County Historical Society Museum at 321 Washington Avenue, Bay City, Michigan.
So we're here.
We are.
We're at Scott Morgan's house. The first MMHP 989.
That's right, one of the legends of Michigan rock and roll.
Scott Morgan apartment. We have the whole gang here. Scott was gracious enough after 3 years to allow us to come down and tape with him here for our Michigan Music History podcast.
That's right.
And Scott is very in tune with modern day ecological and political happening still after all these years.
I watch a lot of news all day long. MSNBC's on.
I know that a lot of our conversations on the phone, you keep me up to date better than the news does half the time. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I try to keep up with it. You know, I'm interested in what's going on. You know,
well, it's been since day one, right?
Stuff like that.
I mean, you were around doing that. You were in the political thing, the MC5 days, the Rational days.
Yeah, Sinclair wrote it. I think he wrote a book called Music and Politics.
Mm-hmm.
So they're connected. The Guitar Army. I mean, that's like kind of the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
He used your song as the title of one of his books. Yeah.
And he autographed it for me. He said thanks. So
yeah,
it's nice of him. I mean, he managed us for a while, him and Pete.
Yeah, it's not only a great title for a book, but a great song. I love that 45, even though, you know, it's probably one of the records that a lot of people haven't heard. At least the original 45,
well,
right?
It's out.
Yeah, right.
It's been
because
released
you did a different version slightly when you did the album, right? You re-recorded it. That wasn't exactly the same.
I think it's the same track.
Was that the same track?
Probably just remastered.
All right, yeah. Okay.
It's this one here.
Look at that.
Yes, reissued after.
It's Cleopatra in Hollywood.
Yeah, I was wondering if the same company that did Think Rational, where they've got all your tracks that you did with Jeep Holland.
Oh, that's Ace Records. They're in London.
All right. Okay, so they didn't do this album. Wasn't the same group that did the. Because it seemed to me I was reading that they were the next project.
No, I think they did the estate of Jeep Holland, which is everything that was on A Square.
Right.
And then this was after.
Yeah, this was done on Crew Records, right?
Do whatever you want with that.
We'll be taking some pictures of it, Scott.
That's
Thank
my
you.
other band.
Yeah, I want to get into that too.
That's cool.
Did you say this is on Cleopatra?
Yeah, and there's the live at the Grande Ballroom, like 2 days before they recorded Kick Out the Jams.
Yeah.
That's on there too.
The only professional recording credit I have as a recording person is Larry McRae on Cleopatra Records. I recorded a session for him that's on a compilation for Christmas. Santa Claus Wants Some Lovin', an old Albert King song.
Who's that?
Larry McRae, a blues guitar player.
Oh, yeah. Flint?
He's actually Saginaw Bay City. Lived in Davison for the longest time. He's in Bay City now.
That's actually
Munger.
That's actually a Sir Mac Rice song.
Oh, that is? Santa Claus Wants Some Lovin'? Didn't know that. He just told me Albert King all the time. So.
Okay.
Well, Albert King's one who had the hit with it.
What song is that?
Santa Claus Wants Some Lovin'.
I don't know that one. You guys are deeper into that than I am. Yeah, you know your stuff. You managed Hound Dog, right?
No.
No? Didn't you work
not
with
Hound
them?
Dog, but all the Michigan ones.
What?
All the Detroit artists.
Okay.
Blues I managed.
Okay. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Scott, take us back to why and how and when did the music start for you? When was it?
What's that?
Tell me when music started for you when you were young. Take us back to the day one. How did this all begin? Where was your spark?
My mother is a Bach, So I've got like natural music, I was born with it. And she was a marimba xylophone player. And the first gig I did, I got an acoustic guitar. I talked her into buying me a guitar. And so it was just this inexpensive K acoustic. And we played at the Grange Hall, and we played Silent Night while the audience, whatever you call them, sang the song. And she played the xylophone, and I played the guitar.
Wow. How old were you when that happened?
12, 13, I don't know, early teens.
But then you teamed up with Steve Carell when you were in junior high?
Yeah.
And you guys
he called me up, and we were both going to Forsyth Junior High, and he lived right on his back door would go like right on, to Forsyth. And he called me up and he asked me to play him something over the phone. So I played him like Walk, Don't Run or something like that. It's some instrumental songs or Memphis or Apache or something, that's what we didn't sing then. So we were just doing all instrumentals.
Well, those instrumentals were so big, in the late 50s and early 60s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my gosh.
So there's a whole lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like when the British invasion hit, that ended the instrumentals. It was all vocals.
Well, because everybody could sing. So
Yeah.
the first time I sang was at the Farm Council grounds. There's a Quonset hut on Saline Ann Arbor Road, and I sang Money. And the Beatles had already covered it. And, of course, the original is Barrett Strong.
Yeah, Barrett Strong, right. Yeah,
So-
very cool.
When did you realize that you had a voice like you do?
Well, when I sang Money, I figured, well, I can do this. Why not just keep going? And then, then we started writing songs. And, of course, we were influenced by the Beatles and, all the British groups. And so we were singing with this, what's it called, the Liverpoolian Scouse accent. And it was so stupid because they were trying to be Americans and they were doing all these American songs. But the Beatles and the Stones and the Who, Pete Townsend was roommates with Tom Wright, the photographer who
Right.
shot the cover for that. And he did the Faces in the Arboretum and with
Wow.
Rod Stewart and Ron Wood. And so...
So I want to walk with you.
Yeah,
was
that's
that
kind of-
your first?
Yeah, kind of a
composition?
Beatles knockoff.
Yes, it
yeah.
was.
But then we started thinking, well, this is stupid, because they're trying to be Americans and do all these American songs. We should just use our own accent, our American accent,
Right.
which is, I think it's a dialect. That's what they call it of English.
Right.
It's not English because they don't speak that in England the way that they talk in the United States.
Right.
It's American.
What led you to make contact with Jeep Holland?
He was a DJ at the YMCA dances in the basement of the YMCA. And so we would go down there and they'd have people come in like Billy Lee and the Rivieras and the Velvelettes and people like that. And so we would go down there just to hang out and dance and listen to the music. And so we started talking to them and then we kind of developed a little thing, a little rapport between us. So eventually, we talked him into managing us, and I think he already had that in his mind that he was going to get into, on the ground level, of the music business. And so that's when we started working with Jeep and A Square Productions. It's Ann Arbor,
Right.
A Square.
And then you actually recorded the very first A Square single, right?
Yeah, look at Gave My Love was the A side, and Look What You're Doing to Me, Baby was the B side. It was like a big hit on the local AM station, WPAG, I think.
I love Look What You're Doing to Me, Baby. I mean, that, you guys, I don't know, to me, it sounded almost like the Kinks. You know, had that big kind of
we're in the
crunching
Kinks,
guitar
yeah.
sound.
Oh,
Great
all those
vocal by
bands.
you. But that was like #1 on some radio
Yeah,
stations.
WPAG.
And
yeah.
you guys are what, like sophomores or juniors in high school?
Yeah, so we go back to high school. We're big stars
I
because
guess.
they don't know that it's only going like, a short distance, outside of Ann Arbor. It's a small station. They don't have
Right.
a big tower or anything. They probably, because the AM signal goes much broader than the FM signal,
Right.
which only goes like 50 miles,
Yeah.
even if you got 50,000 watts. And then you got Wolfman Jack, he's got 100,000 watts on the Mexican border. And he's got these towers that are so powerful that it kills birds when they fly too close to the towers and stuff. So CKLW was 50,000 watts clear channel AM. And so they would cover the entire Great Lakes and the southern, let's say between Cleveland and Chicago, in this strip, that was theirs in the daytime, and at night it would be picked up on these skip waves that bounce off the atmosphere, and it would go all over the world.
Right.
Like Southeast Asia, Russia,
Wow.
you name it.
Wow. And you've lived in Ann Arbor your whole life then? This area?
Yeah, I was born here at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. It's not a hospital anymore. They moved it out. They have a big complex now, but it was just that building. It's now an office building, I think.
Wow, fantastic.
Well, I'm curious about that when you went back to school and you've had the #1 hit. How was that? I mean, what was that like walking the halls? Was this Ann Arbor Pioneer? Was that where you were in high school?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
went to Pioneer. My mom wanted me to go to U-High, and I said, no, I want to, I like these, juvenile delinquent kids, we're just more down to earth, hillbilly kids, black kids and stuff. And so, we all got along pretty well.
Okay.
And so I wanted that kind of experience. I didn't want a fraternity kind of experience
Right.
at U-High. So I went to Pioneer, yeah.
And
So a lot of people went there.
but that kind of put you on a certain plateau at the high school because of the success of
When
your band.
Respect
though, right?
came out,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
even before that, when your first single was #1 on local radio, it
Yeah,
must have been a pretty
that's
big
true.
deal. Yeah.
Oh, see, I would have started in '65 at Pioneer.
So that would have been like 10th grade, maybe, or 11th grade.
Yeah, it's 10th, 11th, 12th. And in Michigan, or at least in Ann Arbor, it's junior high is 7, 8, 9. High school is 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. Yeah, that's different where we live, where junior high is like 6, 7, 8.
Now it's 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and then high school is 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
So junior high is not 7th, 8th, and 9th anymore?
Not in, it's never been that way in Bay City.
Saginaw it was.
Oh, was it?
Really?
Yeah, not in Bay City.
Really?
Bay City
Well, maybe
High
it's
School.
different from town
Yeah.
to town,
Yeah,
or county
right.
to county, or
Exactly.
however that works.
Exactly. I was reading, in your book, in the booklet that went with the double CD on that had all the G Pollen stuff that you recorded. That your next single, which was I thought really great too, is called "Feeling Lost."
Yeah.
Really had a kind of a British invasion thing
Yeah, Steve
going.
Carell sang that one. I wrote the words and he wrote the music and he sang it. And we got Iggy to play the bass drum on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because our drummer was a marching band drummer. And so, they didn't have drum kits, They were just, over their shoulder, drums,
Okay.
Like Otha Turner, his
Oh, yeah.
fife band,
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And I also read where Bob Seger was kind of involved in the production, or he helped out in the production. Is that right?
Yeah, he was around, and him and the guy he was working with, Jesus, Doug Brown.
Doug Brown, yeah. He
Yeah.
was Doug Brown in the Omens.
Yeah, yeah, and they came down to the sessions, and then the next session we did was, well, after Respect, was Hold On Baby. Let me see, trying to remember.
Yeah, that was the follow-up to Respect.
Yeah, and Bob sang the high harmony on that.
Ooh.
And back then, his voice, he could hit these high notes and hold on, baby, really high, and do it for the whole song. He was really good.
Who did you guys discover that Sam Hawkins song, or was that Jeep who brought that to you? Do you remember?
Jeep was giving us all the cool songs, all the soul tunes. Like he was convinced that Leaving Here was going to be hit by Eddie Holland.
Yeah, it was a great song.
So we recorded it twice, and we took it to CLW and said, no, this is the B-side, is the hit. It was Respect. So all of a sudden, like, it's a big deal, because we're doing Respect like 6 months before Aretha.
Ah.
Yeah, there was some, rumors around that Jerry Wexler was really interested in you guys for Atlantic Records.
Yeah, he was.
And he may have suggested that song to Aretha to record.
I think he
I
did.
don't know if that's true or not.
And the Franklin family lived in Detroit at that time.
Right.
So because Respect was on all the AM stations, the top 40 stations, they call them, and they would have heard it like every day.
Well, right.
So they must have think, well, we can do a better job of it. Of course they did, and they could, and they did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh,
That's something that we've talked about for a long time. Was the
I think that was a lot of that was Carol, and she was involved in the arrangements, and maybe Irma too.
Do you remember much about, of course, one reason that Respect, I think, besides being a great song, but it got more national exposures because you guys signed with Cameo Parkway, which had national distribution.
Yeah, we released it on A Square, and then Cameo Parkway picked it up.
So
That's Alan Klein's company.
Yeah, do you remember much about the signing? Was it, trying to think of the guy that was the representative for Cameo that came around. He ended up doing Casablanca Records.
Oh, Neil Bogart.
And Neil Bogart. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Did you meet him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was actually the guy who, signed you guys.
Yeah, Alan he was in New York or whatever, right. And Cameo's guy on the street was Neil, so he came to like the LSAC show at Coba Hall. When they had to stop the show for every time we would start Respect, like these girls would like charge the stage. And so he tried to, when Alan Klein left Cameo Parkway, he tried to get all the Cameo bands to Capitol. And so he got Bob Seger there and Question Mark and Grand Funk and the Rationals for one song, which was I Need You, the Carole King, Jerry Goffin song. Mm-hmm. We picked it up from Chuck Jackson's version,
right,
and did our own, which turned out pretty well.
Oh yeah, a lot of people think it's better than the original.
The Chuck Jackson version is really good, but it's different.
Yeah,
because it's with an orchestra, and we're just like a band,
Fantastic.
So did you? Another interesting story around this time was your recording of Gloria.
Everybody did Gloria.
Yeah, but you guys intended that to be your single, right?
I don't remember.
And then
we recorded it. I know.
Yeah, and then the Shadows of Night put their version out before you got yours, and that pretty much killed it.
Yeah, I think we.
But I always thought your version of Gloria was better than the Shadows of Night, and I'm a fan of the Shadows of Night, but your version of Gloria was
they're from Chicago,
really good.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So another one of those, how that may have changed the whole direction of things if you would have put that song
there's
out a
another
little
song
earlier.
that's almost the same song. It's by Ray Sharp. It's called "Help Me."
Oh, okay.
He had a big hit with a song called "Linda Lou."
I had the 45.
Okay, so he also did this song called Part 1 and Part 2 of "Help Me." It sounds just like Gloria, but Van Morrison obviously wrote
Right.
Gloria. He's the man behind the whole thing. So, if you go to the last waltz, you'll find out that people really perked up when Van Morrison did Caravan in the last waltz, and Dr. John says, I watched the house and I watch the band and I see what the reaction is, and Van Morrison was what really brought the house down, and the band was all smiling and having a good time. For some reason, I don't know, something about his energy,
Well, he was
He's a
great. He
musician.
still is great, really.
Oh, yeah,
he's still doing
is.
a lot
You
of
know,
Still playing.
Van connected with them in Woodstock when they all lived in Big Pink and stuff. So Van lived there for a little while
Yeah,
before he
that's
went
right.
to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then when they made their move, Van was making. So they were kind of hand in hand at that time. And then doing the last waltz in 76 or 75. It was like perfect because Van was up in San Francisco. They were down in I can't remember where the last studio that Robbie bought is. I think that's where Rick Rubin is now, that studio. And they were just their units were like one unit. They would always help each other out for that time period.
You're talking about the band
Yeah,
and Van Morrison
yeah,
working together?
yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I don't know how much they worked together, but they lived near each other and they inspired each other and did a lot. Like,
Well, I didn't.
the band was in Woodstock, and that's what kind of got him.
I
up
know
with Dylan.
Van was into San Francisco, but I didn't know that the band was.
They were south of San Francisco. I don't remember how far south, but that's where Robbie bought that studio that currently is owned by Rick Rubin.
Oh, okay.
And-
American Records.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it was.
Did Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
that was a big thing.
Well, that was a different studio too, though. But that was that was the
that
movie
was his
theater.
big claim to fame.
Yeah, but there's anyway, the band had a lot to do with Van at that time, like keeping in touch. There was a lot of energy between the two from the Woodstock move to California. So
Well, Van appeared on one of the band's songs on one of their albums.
yeah,
I'm trying to think the album.
Stage Fright or something.
I think it was Stage Fright.
Yeah,
He appeared on a cut there.
It's the Irish one. There's an
Yeah.
Irish name tune that's. Yeah.
So they did Stage Fright in California?
They may have cut that out there. I can't remember. They did one album with Todd Rundgren, and then they boogied out to California, and Robbie bought a
Yeah,
studio.
Todd's still in New York, I think.
Well, he's in Hawaii now.
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Well, he was in New York for a
But
long
Bearsville Studios was the big one in Woodstock where they all cut together.
time. Okay.
Van was there.
Whose
Dr.
studio
John.
was that? Was that?
It's still Bearsville Studios. It was the guy that was the manager of Bob Dylan and
Albert
Gold-
Grossman.
Yes, Grossman Studio.
Grossman,
He
yeah.
owned it at the time.
He had Janis Joplin and
Yes. Yep.
a lot of people.
But it was cool
Tiny
synergy.
Tim.
What?
He managed Tiny Tim. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember seeing you
Yeah, it was a big thing on Johnny Carson.
in
when he got married.
1969 at the Toronto Pop Festival. I was there, and I think that's the first time I met you.
What was I doing at the Toronto?
I don't know.
Festival? Okay. I
You
believe
were in
but
the audience. I don't know if you played or not.
I don't think so, but I think some other people played at that show.
Right.
Did
There
Joni
were-
Mitchell play? Or Neil Young or anybody like that?
Well, wasn't that the?
No.
The band?
How about wasn't John? Didn't John?
I'm trying to think of
Lennon-
all
No,
the-
that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
This
Neil's
was
from
earlier.
Ontario, right?
Okay.
There's a
But
place in northern Ontario.
Right. But the band played at it, Teagarden and Van Winkle, because they both did The Wait. Teagarden and Van Winkle came out and played The Wait. And
Really?
then later that night, the band came out and did the same song. Because they,
Yeah.
they did it.
Yeah, those are two. Robbie
But I
Robertson.
remember Teagarden and Van Winkle playing it.
Well,
And there were a couple other, I don't know if SRC played at that, but there was another Ann Arbor band that played at it. But it was Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Sly and the Family Stone, Steppenwolf.
I don't even remember being there, but I don't think we played.
No, I don't think you played, but I remember meeting you there.
Okay, well then I was there.
Let me throw out another name, Scott. Robin Seymour. He seemed to have been somebody who was really in
He's one of the two
the corner
people
for
besides
the
Sheep
Rationals. Yeah.
who really, and John and Pete Anders and John Sinclair and Jeep Holland were Robin Seymour and Russ Gibb at the Grandy Ballroom. And we played Robin's show, Swingin' Time, like 20 times. We were there all the time, and we got to be friends, with Robin, and he was really good to us,
Are there any tapes of those shows of Swinging Time? Did
Probably.
anybody keep any
there
of
is.
those things?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
Really?
I've seen some on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
So some performances of the
Yeah,
Rationals?
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I'll have to dig those out. I didn't realize there were any. How about SRC? Are
But
there?
there's one with Bob Seger doing East Side Story.
Okay. I've seen
There's
the
several
one
of the Rationals. We did Respect, of course, and something else, maybe like Leaving Here or
Okay.
something else.
And then this getting ahead of ourselves here, but he kind of helped you get the album deal too, right?
Yes, we after we left Jeep, we started working with Robin in a business thing, and he hooked us up with Cameo Parkway, or not Cameo Parkway, Crew. Bob Crew was Mitch Ryder's guy.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Crew?
No.
Okay. He seemed like
No.
kind of a strange guy. He really screwed up Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.
Yeah, they're still upset. I talked to McCarty. He's like going like, can't believe we were like on top of the world, and all of a sudden he talks Mitch into going to Vegas, with this big giant orchestra and all this stuff, and we're going like, oh God.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The B kind of got over it, I guess, because he just became like kind of a journeyman, and he's best drummer in Detroit now, but. And McCarty back then and still is a great guitar player, so they had one hell of a band there.
Yeah. McCarty's played in Bay City a few times at Scotty's Sandbar.
Yeah, so I talked to him about that, and I was trying to talk him into putting a band together, like a Cream thing with the B, and he said, well, I don't want to tour. I'm going to let Carmen Appice do the touring thing, and I'm just going to stick around, but I'll go to Bay City. That's what he said. That's as far as he would go.
He told me that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun to see him in that venue because it's really a nice music venue, but it's not real big, so it's great to see somebody
We
play
played
there.
outside in Bay City.
Yeah, you played at the Friendship Shell,
Right.
Okay.
which is right on the Saginaw River.
That was a radio gig, right? It was a DJ gig or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It was like a reunion of a lot of the Michigan bands.
That's your show, right?
Dick
Fred?
Wagner's band was there. The Bossmen.
Didn't we play there
Question
more
mark
than
and-
once?
Yeah.
In Bay City?
I think I booked you in there.
Okay. With Lightning? Or with
No,
Scott
no,
Morgan
with-
Band? Scott's Pirates?
No, it was a reunion of the Rationals.
Oh, okay.
Because you and one of the band members.
Oh, Question
Remember
Mark
you
was on
te-
this show?
Yeah. Remember you were
yeah, I
telling
remember
me that I forget how much the contract was for, but then one of your band members said, no, we should be making $10,000.
Just when you were at School Kids?
I could have been. Yeah, it must have been.
Okay. Because you were booking us in, like, California and stuff like that. We played Davis, California at Davis, and they said, that's not what we expected, but thanks. So they thought it was going to be like the MC5 or the Stooges or something. So, yeah. And we played The Hate played the Boomerang on the Haight-Ashbury, you know, on the north end of Golden Gate Park. Is it that name of it? The big park?
How
I think so.
so you didn't feel like the San Francisco audiences really appreciated
Well, you only
Detroit rock?
played one show.
Okay.
That was
'cause-
the only time we ever played there.
yeah, I kind of got the sense that you know, the MC5 and SRC
They were out there, yeah.
were not really received real well. You know, they
It's
didn't-
possible, yeah.
yeah, that they didn't really maybe get what was going on in Detroit. there.
Probably in New York, too.
Yeah, could have been. How did you, you know, Steve Carell was quoted in the booklet for Think Rational, that double CD of the Jeep Holland stuff, that he didn't feel really a part of kind of the
You were
political.
talking about the third man thing, the ace thing?
Well, this
There's A Square, of course.
no, this
different
was the one that was just on the Rationals. Think Rational, the 2 CD.
Oh,
set.
yeah, there was 5 12-inch vinyls, I think. There's a whole bunch of them.
Oh, okay.
That was
you know,
on Ace.
Yeah, he was saying that he didn't really feel that much a part of the political thing.
Steve?
That was going on at
Probably
the
not,
Grandy.
yeah.
Was that the way you felt, or was that kind of a division
No,
between you
I
two
wrote
guys?
Guitar Army. So,
Oh, okay.
so, yeah, you can tell from that I'm into the political thing.
Okay, so that was more or less, was that kind of a bone of contention in the
No.
Rationals?
No,
Okay,
it wasn't
not
a
really.
problem at all.
Okay. How about the offer to join Blood, Sweat, and Tears to replace Al Cooper?
I think that was Albert Grossman's guy, Bennett Glotzer. I think that's who he was working with, but he kept calling me. And we had met Al Cooper in Cleveland when he was playing with the Blues Project. And he was a really nice guy, you know. And so he came to the Grandy, he played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And that first album, Child is a Father to the Man.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's not in the band anymore, and they call me up and say, "You want to take his place?" I'm going like, "Well, if you fired the guy who started the band, what am I going to have to say?" So you're going to be singing "Spinning Wheel," you know? And I'm going like, no, that's not going to happen.
Ah,
And then he got back to me again, and he said, after Janice died, that I want you to take Janice's place. I'm going, nobody can take Janice's place. This is stupid, you know? What are you thinking? You know, it's like, why don't you just sign my band, you know? So, you know, what's Full Tilt Boogie or whatever, the Cosmic
Right.
Blues Band or whatever
Yeah.
the last one. It's all about Janice, you know?
Yeah, right.
I
And
just
then
saw David Clayton Thomas on YouTube the other day.
Oh, he'll be living off that for the rest of his
Well,
life.
that's what he was saying. It was his band, but he was singing all old Blood, Sweat, and Tears
of course.
songs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I
Those-
see.
Those were the hits.
And still sounds great.
Oh, he's good. I met him in a hallway backstage, and he kind of glowered at me. I think, you know, it's like I was gonna jump in and take his place or something. Like, I don't want anything to do with it, man.
there's Scott
It's
Morgan.
your band now.
Yeah.
I got a band.
So you had no regrets about making that decision, you know?
I've been asked it a million times,
Yeah.
and just no offense, but it was not going to happen. We were making that Rationals album
Okay.
at the time, and I'm going like, we're making our first album. The timing's bad. Everything's bad about it, you know.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
Well,
taking
that's
Al's
understandable,
place.
sure.
No, I'm not interested. And after that, it was Andy Kuhlenberg, who was a flute player. He played the flute thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanted me to play with his. He just kept calling me. So Fred and I went to California. We got a drive-away car, and we took this Cadillac all the way to Palm Springs from Detroit. And it was a good time. We spent a month out there, stayed at Sandy Koufax Tropicana.
This is Fred Smith.
Fred Sonic Smith, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And we were in the process of forming Sonic's Rendezvous Band. And so, you know, I played one show with Ray Manzarek and Iggy and a bunch of, big time guys, and we rehearsed at Danny Sugarman's house, who was the manager, I think, for the Doors.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And then we played the gig, and the gig was interesting because I left my harps in my apartment, and Fred had the key, so I couldn't get back in, and Iggy leaped from the balcony next door to my balcony and got my harps, and I'm going,
Nice.
this is insane, man, because it's like 3 stories down into the parking lot, and some guy had tried to climb into the apartment across the hall from us, and he had fallen all the way down. He was dead, right?
Jeez.
So Fred would go over there and, get him in. He didn't want to see this happen again. And Fred was, he was a smart guy and a good guy and a great musician, So anyway, we stayed at the Coronado, which was like the big place for like musicians. It had been like a movie star place, Clark Gable and all those people back in the 30s, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we stayed there. We had Terry Treban, our bass player from the Rationals, had an apartment, and he was going back to Michigan. He said, "You can have my apartment and rent's paid for a month." I'm going like, "Okay, thanks." We didn't have any furniture or anything,
So is this where the idea of the Sonics Rendezvous Band started to percolate a little bit? That
Yeah.
you guys thought that, maybe
Yeah,
we
Fred
could get
called
something
me. He
going?
was on the last tour of the MC5, which was just him and Wayne basically, and some pickup guys doing like Gloria and Louie and stuff like that, just the easy songs, Chuck Berry songs or whatever. And he called me and he said, "I just bought a house on the west side, or a flat on the west side of Detroit, on Chopin Street, and would you help Sigrid, his wife, move in?" And so I did, and I had to go get the furniture out of her parents' garage and then moved her into the apartment. And so that's the beginning of me and Fred working together, although we'd known each other, when we were in our respective bands, the Rationals and the MC5. We knew each other from then, and Ascension after that. So I did, and I had dinner with her parents, and her dad had been like in a prisoner of war camp and stuff like that in Europe. And, I think Sigurd was from East Germany, and Lenny Sinclair was too.
Right.
They have like great stories, although Sigurd died last year. So, yeah, that's a real shame, but,
Well, then you recruit
So we came back to Michigan.
and recruit Scott Ashton and Gary
Yeah, but
Rasmussen.
we were looking for a drummer. It was just me and Fred, and we picked up this guy, Ron Cook, played with Mitch Ryder's Detroit and Catfish with Bob Hodge, and he had him play bass with us, and that was good because he could play bass, he could sing, he could write songs. He had really good taste in music. He did like Johnny Burnett songs and stuff like that. The rock trio, and but then Scott came back he had been sleeping like on the floor at the Coronado at Ron's apartment, and he came back and he moved into his mom's house. I said, "Fred, Scott's back. He's not playing. He sold his drums to Dennis Thompson to get a ticket back to Michigan. And we have to get him in the band. And we have to go over and throw rocks at his window and wake him up and take him down to the music store and get his mom to sign for a set of drums." So she signed for a loan, so he could buy it on time or whatever you did back then. And all of a sudden, now it's me and Scott and Fred and Ron. And then Ron was so into Harley Davidson, so he kept pawning his bass and his gear to get a motorcycle. So finally, he called up and we had gigs in Bad Axe. It was a music festival outdoors, and it was in 3 days. And so Ron calls up and says, I can't make the gig. And so Fred goes, yeah, okay. Hangs up the phone. Says, what's Gary's number? So he called Gary. And Gary said, yeah, I'll do it. So 3 days we were on stage at Bad Axe. You know?
When was that?
That would have been,
Probably around 75, right?
yeah, something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mid
I thought it'd be
70s,
after that.
early
Yeah.
70s. Fred and I started working together 73, 74, right after the Five broke up in Ascension. He only did a few gigs with Ascension. It was a good band. They have a bootleg out.
Oh,
Oh,
I've heard of
okay.
that. But
Yeah, it's available.
is that the ones that put up the Sonics live stuff too? Is it on that label? Because I saw all that stuff.
I don't know. I think it's a bootleg.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it was ever.
Never released officially.
I don't think so, but I could be wrong. He
I've
did.
heard of it.
He did "Get Ready" by the Temptations, and "Summer Cannibals," something he wrote. And it was a good band, but it didn't last. You know.
So when you guys were doing that whole time period, during the start of it, were you guys getting together and writing a lot, or what was the impetus to continue at that point? I mean, by then you had Gary in the band now, and you're
Well, we were when we got back from California. We didn't do anything for a while, and Fred would just go to the local clubs and get a band together, which he called the Sonics Rendezvous Band, kind of a joke, right? You know, just whoever showed up would be in the band. And so then we started using the name, and he said, well, I don't want to call it that because, like, you know, I don't want it to be named after me. And I'm going, Fred, it's a great name, man. Just keep it, you know. Then he's coming up with all these different names, you know, like the Orchids, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm going like, oh, let's just call it Sonics Rendezvous Band. And so we did.
Were you managing yourself, or did you have a manager at that juncture?
Chato Hill was Fred's manager. He's an ad guy from Detroit. He's still around. He was at the show at the Blind Pig.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to him. He keeps telling me he wants to do something. And I don't know what. He says, I'll call you, and then he never calls me. And
I probably ran into him then.
our road manager was Freddie Brooks, and I tried to put those two together to be like a team, and it was not going to work. It was an oil and water thing, you know.
Well, okay. How about, you know, you guys were really kind of, well, you were a Detroit supergroup, really. You know, you had all these players that were in important bands.
Sonics Rendezvous Band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, I could never figure why record labels wouldn't want to latch on to your band immediately. You know, I mean, just seemed
Well, Fred
like,
kind of had cold feet about the big labels because
okay.
he'd been on
All right. Elektra
and Atlantic.
Yeah.
both, and he wanted like certain things like that they weren't going to give us, basically, I guess. Lots of money and creative control and all that stuff.
Did the advent of disco put a kibosh to a lot of it too?
What?
I mean, you guys were coming up through the disco period. Did that put a kibosh to the pure rock that you guys were doing at the time?
The what period?
Disco.
Disco.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have anything to do with that.
No,
We played a strip club,
No, what I meant
but that's
was
about it.
all the record companies were buying up disco at that time. So they may not have been so interested in pure rock and roll. I mean, all there was back then, I mean, there was like, what, Kiss, Blue Oyster Cult, BTO, stuff like that. But you guys came right there with the Michigan rock. I just wondered if disco washed it away so hard that you guys couldn't even jump into a place.
It's an insight I never
Never
occurred
thought
to
of.
me it's
Yeah.
possible.
Because that was 75, 76, you know, during your heyday there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't pop, really.
Yeah.
We were a
I
rock
know.
and roll band.
Right.
And there's a lot of really interesting live recordings around. I think, didn't Patti Smith pull some stuff together and
Yeah.
released some of the Sonics Rendezvous Band?
Yeah, this guy Bob
material?
Matthew, photographer for Cream, he moved out to Los Angeles, Hollywood, and so he hooked us up with this guy Carl Sandercock at Easy Action Records in London. But Carl lives out in what's that, Glastonbury or something like that. That's the coast of
The big festival
England.
site? Glastonbury would have the festival every year?
I don't know. I've never
Yeah.
been there.
Okay.
But that's where he lives. But the company's based, the offices are in London. And they're a pretty good label. And we've had real good success with Carlton. He's been really good about releasing our stuff. And he put out this box set. I'm sure you've seen this, but this is what you're talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But one
Yeah.
song with Sonic's Rendezvous Band, and all of a sudden there's 6 discs on this box set. It's sort of like, that's all the stuff that fell by the wayside, in the disco wars or whatever it was.
Yeah, but I mean, you listen to those live cuts, and there's a lot of really good original rock and roll songs that you guys were playing.
Absolutely. It stands to this day.
Yeah, I mean,
I
sounds
have
great.
you guys in the car a lot. There's
Well, we did a lot of R&B and rockabilly, and you know,
it was tight and powerful and very Michigan, but still rocked.
well, we had a lot of influences. We like Ricky Nelson because he was on TV every week,
Well,
and we liked Lonnie Mack because he did Memphis, and and we liked Claudine Clark, Party Lights.
There we go.
And stuff like that. Just we just go through all these lost soul tunes.
Well, that was the beauty of radio back in those days, is that
Yeah,
there was such a great variety of stuff.
that's the thing. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like freeform radio with 50,000 watts clear
Yeah,
channel broadcasting.
And just all these great songs, and you could hear Dave Brubeck and Ray Charles and Ricky Nelson or Elvis and the Beatles. I mean, all these
Well,
different
you'd
people.
hear Patsy Cline on the same
Yeah.
station as Otis Redding.
Right, exactly.
It's like, what's wrong with this picture? It's like
But
when
what's right with this picture?
Lindell went to
Yeah.
to Memphis to record What a Man. Everybody hated her. The white people hated her because she's a white girl singing soul. And then the black people hated her because she was a white girl singing soul. So she gave up and went back to Florida and joined a gospel choir or something like
Wow.
that.
Well,
But then it was covered by Salt and Pepper later
Yeah.
with
Now,
other band.
why did Fred leave the group? Because you carried on with.
Well, Fred always wanted to. He had a son who died, unfortunately, from early, as a child, and he, kind of missed that. And so when he met Patty, it was like kismet, and so he started hanging out with Patty, and at first it was cool. We could have like toured, like opened for Patty, and then Fred could come out and do a couple songs with her, and then she could play close the show with her band. And fine, we all got along, why not? And so, but it just never worked out. So he just got farther and farther away from the band thing, and he didn't have to play anymore, really. He was kind of became like a house husband, I guess, or whatever you call that.
were you egging him on at the time to do more music and trying to keep him
Well,
up
you
there?
couldn't make him do it,
Yeah, sure.
Well, Patty kind of stopped playing too, right?
Yeah, I think they both did to raise a family. First
Yeah.
they had Jackson, and then Jesse, and so every time we would start planning a tour, Patty would get pregnant again, and so it would just never happen.
But you continued on with Gary
And Scott,
and Scott
Yeah.
as the Scott Morgan Band,
yeah,
right?
yeah, Scott, and then we changed the name to Scott Spires after that,
Okay, and which
like
brings
Scottish.
brings you to Fred here.
Yeah.
and the School
Yeah.
Kids.
School Kids Records, yeah.
Yeah.
We put out 3 CDs, and that ended
Two,
up on this
I think.
thing.
Wasn't it 2?
3.
Wow.
That's one I don't have.
Is that the one? Is that the
No.
right one?
No,
No,
that's
this
not
is
cool,
it.
kid.
This is
Oh
cool.
wait, that's not it. Okay.
3 chords and a.
Oh, I've got that one.
This one.
3 chords and a cloud
This
of
one
dust.
is all school kids. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
No, this is one I do not have.
What?
I think that's the one that you, or that's a double CD. Was
What?
that both CDs
Yeah,
on
I
one?
think it's
Oh,
true.
that,
It's three albums that came out on.
I got the
school
one with the foot on the wah wah.
no, this
Yeah,
is
that's
on
the last one.
Easy Action.
Huh?
This is on Easy Action.
Yeah, I know,
But
but
that's
it,
just
it
a-
was.
it's a
Oh,
re-
right.
This was after
Reissue.
After
After
School
Steve.
Kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen it.
shut down the business. How is Steve? What's he doing?
Traveling. Seems like,
You
I
retired.
only know on Facebook.
He's retired now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Him and his wife go to a lot of concerts in Detroit, and they stay at Airbnbs, and I think he still lives in Howell.
Yeah, I think so. He's got a house in the country out there.
Right. Were you at that party he put
Yeah.
on once?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember Steve Nardella and I went,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure you were there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, he was a great thing. I mean, he had a lot of stuff going on there. You were
He did.
working for him, and
And the day I got laid off in '97 is kind of when it all ended, the whole label thing.
yeah.
And that's when the whole CDs or, people were going on the internet and uploading stuff or downloading songs. And so Steve came up to my
Streaming.
office. Yeah, streaming.
Right.
He came up to my office and I knew something was happening. And he said, well, you know how business has gotten so slow, I'm going to have to let you go. And I was prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
I got 26 weeks of unemployment.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like a half a year.
It was. I think it ended up being more. But that's when I was playing more with Lazy Lester. So I got out on the road with him.
So you were playing with Lester.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You were playing Washport?
Yep.
Okay.
All over the world.
Okay. So you toured with him.
Yep.
For some reason,
Many times.
I thought
But,
you were his manager or something, but you were you were in his band.
Both.
Both.
Yeah, both.
Did all the bookings. and-
Oh, okay. So you're instrumental in that whole thing then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Scott, when did you recruit Kathy DeShane for Scott's Pirates? Because I've got that CD where she sings "Misery," and
Yeah.
I don't know,
Well,
was that the
we were
first
really
CD? or
into
second?
the Dynamics two-sided hit, "Misery" and "I'm the Man."
Oh, I know. What a great single that was by the Dynamics.
Yeah.
But your version of "Misery,"
It was
I
a
thought-
two-sided hit. You know?
Yeah, it was. That's
and
a killer
for
version.
us anyway.
Yeah.
And so we decided to record them ourselves, and so we brought in Kathy. But she'd already been in the band. She was in a band with her brother, and she was singing "Tainted Love" by Gloria Jones.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, she's pretty good. Maybe we should try and get her in our band. You know?
What band was? Do you remember the name of the band that she was in with her brother? Because I'd never heard of her before getting the
Yeah,
Scott's
she's playing
Pirates.
at like Rick's American Cafe, and
Oh, okay.
the clubs are just around town. She was a windsurfer. Her brother had sold surfboards, windsurfboards.
Okay.
So
Wasn't
it's fun.
Scott's Pirates sort of the Sonic Rendezvous Band added Kathy DeShane?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Because it was Scott and Gary and me, and then
Right.
Kathy, and then we would just get another guitar player, and we went through a bunch of different guitar players, and we had, I think our last session, that Revolutionary Means, the one with the wah-wah pedal,
Right.
that was the last thing we did at School Kids. I think.
Right.
And so by then we had gone through so many guitar players, and so we got Mike Caton to play,
That's
and we
right.
got Bobby East to play, Bobby Basashi, and so, we had like top. And so we went to White Room to record, which is the Nehru Brothers, and it was right downtown Detroit.
That's right.
Yeah, right downtown. It's like
Yeah, I
almost
went
like,
to that studio once. I can't remember. Was,
a nice
was it
studio.
with you?
yeah,
It might have been.
yeah, could have been.
But
Kid
I
Rock
think
was
Robert
recording there, too.
Bradley recorded there.
Yeah,
as
Robert
well.
Bradley played there. Yeah, he was playing with Jeff Oakes and
Right.
some other guys. Maybe the Nehru Brothers.
Right. Yeah, I first saw Robert Bradley in the Eastern Market. All of a sudden, I'm walking around and I hear somebody playing the blues.
That's where they found him.
Really?
Yeah.
And so I went around the corner and here was this, I thought it was an older black guy. He was just sitting in a chair playing some excellent blues. And I
Yeah.
thought, who is this guy? And next thing I knew, he's recording and on RCA Victor. And,
So he put out several albums,
right.
and then he finally just retired, I think.
Yeah, I think he lives in Saginaw now.
Does he?
You saw him.
Well, he played Saginaw. He's lives in
No, I-
Lansing, I think. Because
Oh.
they contacted me to come cover it, and I couldn't make it because I
Where?
was on my own gigs.
Oh.
I can't remember who the guy is that has his contact.
You
But
said it's not Saginaw, some
I think he lives in Lansing area.
Lansing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
But-
Jackson Smith was there for a while.
Yeah.
He keeps moving around trying to find a place to.
Yeah.
He's got an autistic
Oh yeah.
child, and so he has to find a place that's suitable. My brother has an autistic son, so he's in California, which is really good because California has really good support for parents, with a that kind of kid, and so so he actually gets paid to take care of his son. But Michigan
Really?
doesn't. I don't think they have that.
Didn't you and your brothers have a band for a minute
Yeah,
early on?
yeah, Lightning.
Oh, that was Lightning?
Yeah, Guardian Angel. Yeah.
Oh. Because I knew John, but then don't you have another brother, Steve or something?
No, David. He lives
Oh,
in Nashville.
David.
They both moved to California. They were both in the valley, the San Fernando Valley, and so you would just go over like Laurel Canyon Boulevard from Hollywood, and then you'd be in the valley, at Studio City.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed out there a long time. Every time I go to California, I could.
Yeah, your
stay with
brother
my brothers.
John. I had booked King Urtis
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
cross-country
he was
tour.
in his band for a while, and he played.
Yeah.
He played with Lester Butler.
right.
And he's playing with Rick Holstrom now, who's Mavis Staples'
Right.
band leader.
Oh, really? Because he
and
was in Ron Piazza's band, guitar player. That guy, Rick Holstrom.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I saw Rob in New York with his band, some club. What was his band? Something Flyers or something?
Yeah, something like that. Ron Piazza and the Flyers. Yeah. I think it
He's
says
a harp player?
Flyers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his wife plays keyboards.
Yeah, he had a pretty good band. And there was another club in Memphis on Beale Street that was pretty cool too. It's a
We played at one of
club
the
that's
clubs.
been there a lot. It was a blues club
Right,
right on Beale
Can't
Street,
think of the name of
right,
it.
just right downtown.
right. But then you started, didn't you play in a band from Sweden?
The Hellacopters.
Hell,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was. There was nothing really going on. We were just playing these little clubs, like out in the suburbs, and around. Sometimes we'd play in Detroit, but just pick up gigs, for small change, and there wasn't really much going on. We weren't touring, we weren't making records or anything like that. We're just, doing covers, and So I found out that the Hellacopters from Sweden were coming to New York for their first visit to the United States. And these people called me and they said, you should get in touch with them because they're city slang fans, right? The first time they heard that Nick Anderson from the Hellacopters, he's the band leader, he heard city slang and he said, can you play that again? So he was obviously into the band. And so that Henry Rollins and Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, and they were all into city slang. They all just became this giant underground thing, you know. And so the Hellacopters came to New York, and I met them at the recording studio, and they had actually had me record with them on the first day I met them, you know. So I recorded for Sub Pop, Downright Blue, and I played wah-wah and sang lead vocals with Nick, their frontman, guitar player, guitar player, and songwriter.
I forgot about that.
So then it just turned into a big thing, and so every time they would come back to the States, I would get on stage and do the encore with them, you know, and then they flew me to Sub Pop in Seattle, and I played Bellingham, Seattle, and Vancouver, and then they finally said, we're in Chicago, before Washington, before the Northwest, and Nick called Tony Leeuwenberg from Love Slug, and said, why don't we take Scott into the studio and make a record of all these Sonics Rendezvous Band songs that were never released, you know? And so that's what we did. And so we wrote a couple new originals and then recorded a bunch of Sonics Rendezvous Band songs and whatever else I wanted to record, you know.
That's cool. They're paying for it.
Yeah. And, it's like, you know, you get a plane ticket and they give you a place to stay and feed you. And then they're going like, well, now we got the albums out, and so now we have to go on tour. So we toured Western Europe, you know, and then that just keep going on. And this was going on for like 10 years. And every time I would think it was over, to come up with another version, you know. So it started out as the Hydromatics, and it was named after the Hydromatic transmission because Wayne had named his album Dodge Main. So we're thinking, oh, cars, you know. So MC5, you know, that's like car part or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's really the Motor City 5, but they always thought it sounded cool because it could be like,
yes,
hand me an MC5 for this
it turned out to be a great name choice.
Yeah. So we called our band the Hydromatics, and then they took me to Stockholm to start recording there, and so now I'm recording with The Solution, and it's a new thing, and it's Nick's, he's into these concepts, right? So he says, we'll call it The Solution, and the name of the album will be Communicate. Solution, Communicate. Makes sense, right? Makes total sense.
Right.
So the next album was The Solution Will Not Be Televised, after the Gil Scott-Heron.
Yeah.
The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that happens is, after we record the album, they put us on Swedish national television. So the Solution is televised. And
This
it's
is in
like
the
Swedish
90s,
national
right?
television, so it could probably be picked up all over
Was
the
that in
world.
the 90s or early aughts? When was that?
Early aughts.
I remember when
Yeah.
they played Detroit for a show, because
Yeah.
my buddy said you
First tour was in 1999.
Yep, my buddy was like, "You got to see the Hellacopters," and he talked to me about you being in it, and I'm like, "What?" And anyway, I loved the band after that. I was like, "Wow, this is a
Well, they're
cool
good.
rock band."
They're still playing.
Yep.
They went through some changes.
Mm-hmm.
The band I was with was Nick and Robert Erickson and Boba Fett and Kenny Hawkinson and Robert Dahlquist, who they just called Strings, and then they broke up after the last American tour. I guess they had some problems, and he started a new band called Imperial State Electric, and then he got married to another girl. She'd been with this girlfriend for a long time, and he met this girl in Germany and got married to her, and she was in a band too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of their name. Lucifer.
Oh.
Lucifer, they're called. It's a girl singer. So he married this girl, and then he just became the drummer in the band, basically. And, I mean, he's a real smart guy. You know, he's doing really well. You know, out of Stockholm, and they played Germany a lot, and they toured Western Europe, and
a question.
Probably get into Eastern Europe, maybe.
That led you up to kind of the 90s and the aughts there, but coming full circle of everything we just talked about, you stayed in Ann Arbor the whole time.
Yeah.
Everybody else seemed to move away, or everybody else seemed to find another venue outside of Michigan, or whatever the case may be. Why did you stay here instead of move on or go to Nashville or to LA or New York? And what kept you home here in Michigan?
Because I could go to those places and come home.
Cool.
So this just felt like home, you know.
Did you think that ever hampered your career?
No.
Good. Cool.
No, I think the music business is the only thing that hampered my career. You know, you're talking about the disco thing, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, the music business is not much about music and mostly about business now. And so now we're trying to change all that. And like,
I love that
turn
you
it around.
stayed here. There's something that to be learned in that part of the podcast of whether it's Jeff Daniels still staying and being a huge actor and living in
I
Michigan,
just saw
Chelsea.
him. He was in what's that movie he was in? It's something I just watched. He was in Beverly Hills Cop. The new one?
You may have been.
Yeah, the
Really?
new. Yeah,
He's in there?
yeah.
But it's funny because Alice Cooper went to Arizona after he left.
He plays
Michigan.
like a gay designer or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But he still lives on Kavanaugh. He's got a house on Kavanaugh Lake. I don't know if he lives there, but he's got a house there. So he comes back. He's still, his dad owns a lumber company in Chelsea, and our guy that we grew up with and went to school with, Howdy Holmes, he drove a Formula car at Indianapolis once or twice maybe, but we knew him from like way back. But his family owned Jiffy Mix in Chelsea.
Oh.
So those are the two big businesses in Chelsea.
And of course, he has the Purple Rose.
And he has the
Theater.
Purple Rose Theater.
Yeah.
So, and he's still acting. So I just saw him. That's 2024 in Eddie Murphy's new movie, is the latest version of Beverly Hills Cop. Then it starts out, and it's got, what's the the police, chief of police, something,
I can't remember.
Gilbert something. He's in the movie.
Huh.
If you look up, you can see all the characters.
Yeah, Jeff Daniels used to come in to school kids all the time and buy blues CDs. That's all he bought. I remember a woman said, "You know who that is over there?" And I'm going, "Where?" And she said, "That's Jeff Daniels."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he's into music.
he had a beard at the time because he was doing that Civil War movie.
Oh yeah.
And
He was
I
really
was
good.
told
in that.
by Steve Bergman, "Leave him alone. Don't." He
Yeah,
comes
sure.
in here, just don't bother him. Because this woman wanted, and I left him alone. but-
Sure, of course. He's just shopping.
Right.
Don't harass him, man. He's just buying
But
some
I
records.
wanted to make, because that was my department. He was buying from Little Ed and the Blues Imperials, all blues CDs.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a musician.
Well, you should talk to
yeah.
him.
I
You can recommend some stuff.
I sent him a message couple times asking if you ever need a washboard player.
Oh yeah. We had a gig with him and he refused to play. It's like I don't know what happened.
Oh, well.
Just didn't want to
He
get.
plays with his son, I guess, quite a bit.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
He played Bay City at the State Theater a few times.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of them, he always invites people from the front row to come up and kind of dance a certain way to his songs. I never knew that till I went one time.
Well, we were supposed to appear on a show with him, like in Grass Lake or something like that, and I never saw him.
I think that's where Cub Coda was from, wasn't he?
Manchester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another guy on your school kids label,
Yeah.
Cub Coda. Yeah.
Cub Power, all his buttons would say.
Yeah.
And that wraps up part 1 with Mr. Scott Morgan here in the MMHP and the 989. We're so grateful to have one of the bedrock of Michigan rock and roll here to talk to us as we went down to Ann Arbor to visit him at his apartment. Incredible backstory, taking us all the way into the behind the scenes as well as what's going on inside of his mind when he created some of the amazing tunes between the Rationals and the Sonics Rendezvous Band. Part 2 is going to be just as incredible. So much more history coming up. We can't get enough of it here. This is one of the most amazing episodes we've ever been able to do. We're so grateful for Scott Morgan for doing this with us, and we hope you'll be back here joining us for part 2 here in 2 weeks here on the MMHP and the 989. Thank you all for the support, and dig into Scott Morgan.
On behalf of our hosts, this podcast wouldn't be here without generosity of the Bay City Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. We'd also like to thank all of our guests, and especially to the listeners. The MMHP is found at 989.network, or where all podcasts can be found. You can find updated information as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Picks of the Week on Facebook. Also on Facebook, check out Mr. Mike's Local Music Live series and Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen Studios, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1.
On behalf of us hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred,